Hello everyone, hope you're well. We are here with Stefano Marani, CEO of Renergen, and he'll be giving us an update on everything that Renergen is up to. We all know that it's a very fast-moving company, especially now with all the production coming online and everything just going on. So Stefano, I would love to get an update for all Renergen shareholders and those interested in Renergen. We all know the big developments that are going on. So any updates on that, please?
Cool. Thank you. And thanks for having me again. Yeah, I suppose what's topical on everyone's mind right now is the hot commissioning phase. You would have seen from the announcement that we released this morning, along with some photos, one of the big steps in the commissioning process is the fact that we've started cooling the plant down. And what this physically means is that we brought in a liquid nitrogen tank, and from there we started purging all of the systems with nitrogen gas, and then at the same time cooling the cold boxes down, because obviously this entire plant is cryogenic, so it doesn't just get cold automatically. It takes a while for it to cool down, and cooling it down with external liquid nitrogen just helps along in that process. That stage has gone incredibly well, but there are two features about using liquid nitrogen to purge the system, which are important. One is obviously the cooling, which I've touched on. The second is just from a safety perspective. Now, yeah, we would have discussed before what's happening from a helium supply perspective with all of the global shortages and outages. We opted to go this route because this just adds an additional layer of safety. And the safety that it adds comes in the fact that if you leave the cold boxes just as they're installed, there's a lot of oxygen in it because it's full with air. And then you're putting gas and air, and you run the risk of potentially some kind of flammable situation developing inside the cold box. And that's how accidents happen. What we've done by purging the system with nitrogen, which is completely inert, means that you're lowering that risk to almost zero because you're taking all the oxygen out of the system. And so, just in light of all of the other plants' failures globally, this was quite an attractive feature. And then you may have seen from one of my tweets, the guy's also holding onto the hose pipe, testing the fire control systems. So that's all locked and loaded and ready to go with all of the different fire systems across the system. And then also equally excitingly is Argonon's process in terms of the listing, and the fact that the Argy lists tomorrow. They called me up and they told me that they had a little bit of a pre-sale on some tokens, and within a few hours the pre-sale was completely sold out. And that was at the request of the exchange. And so the exchange called Argonon up and asked them to make some more tokens available. So that's looking really, really positive. I think the guys have done a great job on that side. So all in all, it's all systems go. Lots of excitement, lots of work happening, but lots of excitement all around. And all of that obviously going on concurrently with the Central Energy due diligence as well as the Ivanhoe due diligence. So it's busy. It's all hands on deck right now.
Awesome. You also recently released a set of results and just finance update. Can you give us a quick run through for that?
I suppose the key highlight over there, bearing in mind that we are still building a project, so there's not much that you can really glean from the financials, other than the fact that we're starting to incorporate the assets on the balance sheet. I suppose the other key thing to take away from there is that from an operational perspective, two things happened. The first thing that happened was that the marginal revenue that we were making from the pilot project, which again I reiterate was a proof of concept just on 10 buses, even though it was only a proof of concept on 10 buses, that revenue started to materially increase, and that's as a result of global energy prices. And that kind of translates through into what happens for the main plant when the main plant turns on. So that's obviously a good signal for things to come. And then the second part was that over the process, obviously increasing operational efficiencies as time goes on, we managed to reduce the trading losses. again, it's academic. At this stage, it's completely academic because the plant is being constructed. But I suppose those were the two key takeaways, and then the rest of the financials just speak to the the updates along the announcements that were made throughout the year, which obviously quite a significant number of positive announcements. So all in all, good. We're pretty happy with that set of announcements, with that set of results.
By when can shareholders expect, or when is it expected or anticipated that the developments are sort of done, or not done, because there's obviously phase 2, which is another completely big aspect, but just from the phase 1, when is it expected that the revenues will start becoming evidential more from this phase 1?
So the revenues from phase 1 will probably start coming in the next few weeks. So if you had to look through for the next set of financials, you might start seeing some initial hints of it in the August set of results, and then by full financial year end next year, you will have a set of results that shows at least several months of trading. It won't be at full capacity. These plants take, once you've built them, they take about 6 months to ramp up from 50% to 100%. So hopefully we'll be operating by 100% by the time that we reach February next year. And so to see what phase 1 looks like in full operation at 100% capacity, you'll see that in the financials in August of 2023, but we will have been operating for more than a year by then.
What are the probabilities that in 3 to 5 years that the shortage, how difficult will it be for those companies to get back running and face the shortage that there is?
Sure. Some of them have some real challenges, I'm not going to lie. So let's start with the easy ones. Algeria has only switched off not because of a mechanical failure. Algeria has switched off because of the gas crisis. So Algeria has 2 states of the world. They either produce liquid, which means that they cryogenically cool it, which means that they can take the helium out, and then they load it onto ships and they ship it. But because of the fact that Europe is trying to wean itself off of Russian gas, that gas gets fed directly into the pipeline now. So the Europeans are getting helium-rich gas. Now, when I say helium-rich gas, I mean it's 0.1%, but just to put it in context, but still, there is helium in the gas that is now being pumped through the pipeline direct into Europe. To switch on is very easy. It's a couple of weeks. The question is, how long is the conflict going to persist? And even after the conflict has ended, how does the conflict end? And does Europe all of a sudden go back to Russian gas, or does it diversify its stream? And this feature becomes a permanent feature, following which then Algeria just basically remains switched off permanently. No one knows the answer to that. So, but let's just say Algeria is the easiest one to turn on quickly. It's just geopolitically, we don't know what that looks like. The BLM is a mess. And I'm being very, very kind. The pressure is now below, well, firstly, it went below 600 PSI. 600 PSI is important because that's the measure at which point the United States government takes over ownership of the helium sitting underground. The pressure dropped below 600 PSI as a result of the mechanical failures of the compressors. They managed to repressurize it. Now, since then, the pressure has dropped to under 500 PSI. It's in the 400s. So right now, no one really knows what's going to happen. I think there's a lot of soul searching and a lot of discussions that need to take place on that side. Even if they reach some kind of amicable arrangement that helium may then be sold, a few things have happened. There's this in-kind program which relied on the BLM. So the in-kind program says that for strategic users of helium in the United States that the government has a vested interest in, you may obtain helium in kind from the BLM at a discounted price. So you can imagine who those players are. That in-kind program would typically lop off about 25 to 40% of the cost of helium for some of those users. That in-kind program requires the BLM to operate, which right now isn't operating. And is it going to operate in the next 3 months? Definitely not. 6 months? No. The problem is that the liquefiers themselves are damaged, the compressors are damaged. And I can tell you our compressors that we ordered, and we ordered a fast track version when before COVID hit, our compressors had a 16-month lead time. That's when the world was good. I don't see the BLM coming online anytime soon. I really, really don't. But who knows? Maybe there's a bunch of luck and it comes online in 6 months' time. But I'm generally, even though I'm a naturally optimistic person, I'm not optimistic about this one. There was the fire in Kansas. I haven't been able to educate myself too much on what that situation is, but generally speaking, when there's a fire in your LNG plant, it tells you that the LNG plant is pretty old, which means that something has gone drastically wrong and you haven't maintained it, and that means that you've got a lot of work to do to fix it. So the Kansas operation is down. Can't see that one coming online in the next couple of months. That's probably also going to take at least 12. At least let's call it 9 to 12 months before that's operational. That doesn't leave many more operations left out there. And now the elephant in the room is Hugoton, because Hugoton switches off in 2023. And the Hugoton is the single largest independent helium producing gas field that's not owned by a government on the planet.
Why are they down?
They got nothing left. They've run out.
Interesting times. So there's definitely a massive demand for helium, as we know. It's in medical equipment, in our party balloons, in the making of semiconductors, and so many other use cases. But as like an interesting question, 20 years ago, semiconductors wasn't really that big a thing because we didn't use that many semiconductors. What do you think? Is there any guesses that you have for 10 to 20 years from now where other use cases for helium can arrive that is not clear yet?